The first time I ever heard about the flat Earth was on the Joe Rogan podcast. He had on Misha Tate, who was a former UFC fighter.
Mm.
And Joe Rogan said, there are people out there that believe the Earth is flat. And I said, no, impossible. Because I was indoctrinated into the globe Earth from the time from the time they're in kindergarten, first grade. And I had this big astronomy book, and it was filled with all the color pictures. Look at Mars and Jupiter. And they talked about, position of the sun and everything. I was like, man, I was so into it. And then I got into reading about the physicists and about astronomy and cosmology. And I don't know. I don't know how they pulled the wool over my eyes for so long, but I never even imagined. I've heard that in the past, the distant past, that people thought the Earth was flat, and about Galileo and Copernicus proving it's actually heliocentric. So then when I heard about this flat Earth, I was like flabbergasted. And I'm like, no, this can't be. So I did some research, and the first video I ever came across, it wasn't yours, unfortunately. It was allegedly Dave, D. Murphy 25. I'm sure you're familiar with him.
Yeah,
and
his interview that he did on TV, probably, right? It's on,
it was the
Croatian
interview. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a good one.
And then it was one point after the other, and it was like I thought that he wouldn't have a leg to stand on. I'm like, I was going to prove this, and he wasn't crazy. He was a normal, very sane, intelligent man making logical points, and that just really opened my eyes up. That whole interview, I watched it. I was riveted to the TV. And then it was, obviously maybe just a few days later of researching, I came across your channel, your brilliant videos. And you've done such a service to humanity. I call you the father of the Flat Earth movement. I know that there are others who, even going back to the 1900s, have written about it. And you talk about the different experiments that they've done. But really, you're the one that brought it back into the mainstream somewhere. I'm thinking like 2012, 2013, maybe even earlier than that. What year did you? Yeah. And I remember
in November, I a couple of years before that, I'd been collecting everything I could, and I wanted to put out everything all at once because I was kind of fearing for my life at that point. I thought this was, I don't know. I didn't know, what kind of reaction the powers that be would have with somebody coming out with all this stuff. So my idea was to kind of put it all out at once. So I'd had interviews lined up, and I had a documentary. I had my book already written, and my channel already going with other conspiracy stuff. So and it was the second week of November 2014, and ever since then it has been a real snowball. There's been what I would call agents come in shortly after the movement that I knew would happen and talked about in my work ahead of time, because there's things like the Flat Earth Society website, and the guy who started at Leo Ferrari back in the 70s, he had an ongoing rivalry with Charles K. Johnson, the president of IFERS, the International Flat Earth Research Society, which I also restarted around that time. And so I had this, premonition that there would be a Leo Ferrari to my Charles Johnson at some point. And within about 6 weeks of putting on my flat Earth information, I spent years looking, there was nothing on there. And then within 6 weeks, pop, all these people start coming up. Mark Sargent, Flat Earth Clues, all these people that, they had years to if they were, looking at Flat Earth like I was, to be putting this stuff up. But then suddenly, right after I put on mine, then this new little community sprouts up beside me. And anyone that's been in the fringe since then has seen it alongside me. And so there's been kind of like two Flat Earth movements that have grown up since then. The Flat Earth Society, you could call it, central movement with a lot of disinformation and lies being told about me, and then the organic people like yourself that are just learning about Flat Earth and trying to spread the word, which is what I am myself. I'm just the guy that figured this out, and made a decision that I want to try and see if I can spread this to the entire world, because even before I figured out flat Earth, I was writing conspiracy books, and I knew about 9/11 and the New World Order and everything. And finding out about this was just like a whole new level to the rabbit hole. And I figured, this is like, it's so big, it affects absolutely everybody. And the flat Earth, unlike every other conspiracy, it's something that's empirically demonstrable and provable. We can go figure it out ourselves anytime, any day. There's experiments that you can do to find out for yourself whether we're on a level, motionless plane or we're on a spinning, tilting, wobbling space pair, like they tell you. So this is like the Achilles heel of the New World Order in a sense, because it's the biggest conspiracy, the mother of all conspiracies. Like you said, it's the thing that most people think is absolutely ridiculous. If there's one conspiracy theory that's not true, it's got to be the flat Earth. That's the most ridiculous one. But if you actually look into it, what you find out is that it's the most provable thing. I mean, the one thing you can know in this life is that you're on a level stationary plane. It's unlike most other things in this world. Things NASA tells you about the sun, the moon, the stars. Flat earthers will tell you straight up, we don't know. We've never been there. We're fine with saying, I don't know about the things we don't know, but we're also adamant about saying we know the things that we can know. And the thing we know is that we're on a level stationary plane. And there's many, many ways you can prove it to yourself. The most obvious of all being your everyday experience. And that's what brought me to flat Earth. I never really thought flat Earth was crazy, like most people do, like you said. I started looking into geocentrism first because, just sitting in meditation, doing yoga, I just got the sense of, are we really spinning 1,000 miles an hour and then around the sun at 66,000 miles per hour, and the sun's doing, there's 4 different motions. They say we're spiraling through the galaxy all at once, and they add up to millions of miles of hour of contrary directions. Meanwhile, I'm just sitting there in a lotus pose and a slight breeze going by my face, and and if an earthquake happened, we'd sure know if we were moving. It's like, is my common sense deluding me? Or are all those scientists and teachers and NASA and all those other people deluding me? Either one sounds pretty crazy, because that's one of the things people say to you. They're like, oh, you think all these scientists and the teachers and they're all lying, or they're all in on it? Well, some of them are, but no, most of them are just duped like everyone else. And maybe the thing we're duped about is that our common sense and experience is actually true, that tells us that we're on a level plane, we're not moving, and everything in the sky revolves around us. Because that's what we experience, that's what you see for yourself, and that would be the baseline, I would think, before you jump off to, oh no, we're actually on a tilting, wobbling, spinning space pit. Well, you better have a lot of concrete evidence that I should deny my senses and affirm whatever you're telling me. So you start looking into it. What are these globe claims? What is all this proof they have for this spinning globe? And it's pretty damn thin. There's not much. And when you look at the flat Earth explanations for these things, they make way more sense. And so you go from knowing the Earth's a spinning ball and having all these explanations thrown at you about Foucault's pendulums and Coriolis effect and the setting sun and all this. And then you read some flat Earth books and you hear their explanations. Well, flat Earth makes way more sense. The more you read about it, the more you look into it, to the point that the spinning ball becomes the most ridiculous thing. And you just wonder, how could I have ever believed in that? And like I said, it's not a belief. I don't believe that I'm on a level stationary Earth. I know I am. It's demonstrable. It's exactly what I experience every day of my life. There's hundreds of experiments you can do that prove it, and there's 0 experiments that show that we are spinning or on some curving globe-shaped object. So there's a long, sorry about that long monologue, but there's my baseline for where I came to the flat Earth. I didn't think it was crazy. I thought the thing that would be crazy is the fact that if it was real, how deluded everyone is. Like, so everyone's been brainwashed for 500 years. That was the crazy thing to me, and still is to this day. And how difficult it is to try and wake everybody up to this really obvious thing. We've just been so blinded to reality that when someone comes along and says, hey, open your eyes, everything you see that's a completely obvious to you, that's what's happening. And everyone's like, no. What do you mean? What do you mean I'm motionless? What do you mean everything in the sky revolves around me? Like, they've been told otherwise since childhood, to the point that it's like the cognitive dissonance is ridiculous, and they'll, pitchforks come out and the witch hunt starts.
But as I was looking more into it, you wrote that also a book, 200 Proofs the Earth is Flat. That book, all these illustrations, like, how can somebody put all of that science into books and videos for it to be like just complete nonsense? It's not. And what I don't get, Eric, is how did they fool us for 500 years? How do they just, it's such a big lie. And it's not just the flat Earth, it's with the other conspiracy theories that you mentioned too. How do they get away with the oligarchs or the powers that be pulling the wool over our eyes and showing us something that's not even like a subtle difference? It's a black and white difference. How do they do that to us?
Right. I think the answer is propaganda over time. It certainly wasn't a quick process. When Copernicus came, because I say 500 years, they first came out with this idea 2,500 years ago with the Greeks, Aristotle, Eratosthenes, Plato. They had some quote-unquote proofs of their spherical Earth that they thought of that are still used today, like boats disappearing over the horizon and eclipses supposedly being caused by the Earth, shadow and these kind of things. But it didn't catch on at all, and nobody believed or even talked about the spherical Earth theory again until about the 1500s AD, about 2,000 years later, when Copernicus wrote his book. And then shortly after that, get Newton and Kepler, and the idea starts taking hold amongst certain astronomers, but still not among the populace at large. And you still had establishment astronomers, well-known ones like Tycho Brahe, going against them and affirming the stationary Earth. And then that goes on for a couple hundred years until Rowbotham's time. So 1860s, he comes out with his flat Earth material, and so now at this point you get the insight by seeing newspaper articles and the way he writes that it has now taken off quite a bit, and the Royal, what are they called, the Royal Astronomical Society, they've been formed, and they have publications that they push out to people. So since the Gutenberg press, 1500s, or so, I think they had the next couple hundred years to pump out their version through books. And then so when Rowbotham came along, it seems like he was the counterculture. Like, most people at that point were not flat earthers, so they had succeeded in gaining the majority worldview within a few hundred years at that point. And he was, him, and then shortly after, many others from his group started to turn the tides quite a bit. I don't know the exact figures, I couldn't say, but there was quite a rivalry going between the flat Earth and the globe Earth in the mid-1800s up until about the turn of the century. And I think that's when globe Earth got codified into public schools. And shortly after that, in the 50s/60s, is when you get NASA. And I think since then is when it's really solidified. So it's actually been a pretty slow process to getting the whole world believing that we're on a spinning globe. There's always been pockets of people that knew about the flat Earth, And those pockets were way bigger back 500 years ago, 400 years ago. And like I said, mid 1800s to turn of the 19th century, there was a renaissance, a flat earth renaissance that happened. And there was almost a flip that happened there to people understanding reality and throwing that thing out the globe. And hopefully now with the internet and this new resurgence that I've tried to spearhead, we're going to be able to really do it this time, because now we have an opportunity like the flat earthers, even in Charles Johnson's time. He was post NASA somewhat. He didn't have the internet at his disposal, and the members of the International Flat Earth Research Society in his day were just over 1,000 or two, whereas now we're reaching tens of millions of people, and more than that now, really hundreds of millions we've reached. Pretty much everybody now knows that the flat Earth is a new subject that crazy fringe people are talking about again. 10 years ago, nobody would have said that. 10 years ago, it's just flat Earth, what the hell is that? Now, at least, somebody's like, yeah, my father-in-law said the Earth's flat. What is that all about? So it's definitely getting around, and if we can use the internet and the other tools at our disposal to keep pushing this, one, I think, getting this known on a mass scale is feasible, and two, once that happens, all these other systems and conspiracies and problems with government and society that are happening, I think are going to crumble, because I've noticed it when people wake up to the flat Earth. It's just like the blinders come off, and suddenly they're like a sponge, and they start sucking up all of this really good information that people should have been researching but's been censored and suppressed for so long, because they just, you realize, like, if I've been lied to about this, what else is wrong? And then your friend that told you about flat Earth will probably give you a heads up. Whoa, really? You want to know now? You're all right. And then in short span, we can really make some changes that need to be made here. So I find this to be one of the most important subjects that we can talk about, because of the potential effect it has. It's like, what does it matter, the shape of the Earth? It's so deep. If it was just the shape of the Earth, whether it's a square or a rectangle or whatever, it's like, yeah, I get it. That doesn't matter. It doesn't really. So I understand that line of thinking, but what it really is it's about the lie, and how all-pervasive and how fundamental and foundational this lie is. And when you realize that you can be deceived on that scale, it creates an awakening, like Neo in the Matrix or something. It's really transformative.